Right. Hi, everyone. If you're tuning in live, then welcome to it. If you're on Facebook Live, we are showing ourselves here. Today, we have a very interesting, and as I was saying before to my guest today, interesting and at the same time, a little bit of a complex topic. It will take probably more than one session to cover all the grounds. And today I'm so appreciative and grateful to have my guests. I've been looking forward to having this discussion around fatherhood and all the little nuggets that we need to learn from experts such as yourself. So I really appreciate your time, Pastor Paul and Amir. If you're first time joining us, then my name is Gina Chumesi. I'm a nurse practitioner and I do everything around mental health, private practice, and on this channel, just to make the conversations around mental health and different things that come with it, very much as an everyday part of our journeys of our lives. Today, I'm joined by two amazing, powerful men. And like I said, I'm so appreciative for your time and saying yes to me. I have Amir Nabil, my colleague in the world of psych. He's a psych nurse practitioner as well. He's the founder and CEO of Full Psychiatry in the Glastonbury area, right, West Hartford, around there. And he has his own podcast as well around mental health, families, and all of that. And I also have here today Pastor Paul. He is the headship leader and founder of Graceland Church, as well as Grace Space Counseling and Mentorship programs. So gentlemen, thank you so much. And I appreciate your time. We're going to dive right in today. I've done a lot of research prior to this. I'm a big advocate for women and children, but I'm also leaning into becoming, hopefully, over time, a bit of a mentor and advocate for our young men and men as well in that space. So that drove me to this topic today. It's a problem. It seems to be plaguing our communities with having a little bit of an absenteeism of our fathers in our families. And what I also find is there's what I term as a famine, a crave for our fathers. It's almost like you're kind of pulling them in type of thing. In our spiritual realm, in our research, I came across a lot of maybe webinar programs, stuff like that around their spiritual attack on our men and the lacking thereof of the presence of fatherhood figures in our families. Whether we are losing them through, overworking, not being present. If they're present, they're present in person physically, but not emotionally present. We have fathers who unfortunately are passed on, and sometimes we have fathers who are passed on through, chronic illnesses such as strokes, heart attacks, high blood pressure, which, by the way, is supposed to be the silent killer, especially in our African American communities. Without going on too much, I want to throw this right on to you, Pastor Paul, to say, in regards to spirituality, and the quote unquote, the spiritual attack on our fathers and what's been going on out there. What have you seen? What will be your take on, that particular issue and the long-term impact on our kids, our families, and our communities in general? I know it seemed to be a little broad of a question to you, but help us a little bit in that area.
So once again, thank you for the opportunity to be able to share some of our experiences and what we've learned to the listening public. I think in times past, fathering was easier. And I say this because life was simple. Mm-hmm. If you had enemies, they either lived on your street, and if you had friends, they were on your street. You worked in your town, you knew everybody, Everybody knew everybody. Everybody got along. Fast forward the culture in which we live. Life is complicated, and just as, naturally as it would be, fathering has become complicated because now there are so many facets to fathering. Think about this. It used to be that the father goes to work and the mother runs the home.
That's right.
So it's not like only one person was working. Only one person was being paid for the work that was done. So now you have instances where just with work alone, there are so many more complications with just dealing with work. I talk to a lot of men and they'll tell you sometimes when they come home, the first thing they want to do is sit in their car. I talk to a lot of men and they'll tell you sometimes when they come home, right? The first thing they want to do is sit in their car. I talk to a lot of men and they'll tell you sometimes when they come home, right? There are feedback. So I talk to a lot of men and they'll tell you sometimes when they come home, right? There are feedback. So I talk to a lot of men and they'll tell you sometimes when they come home, right? There are feedback. So I talk to a lot of men and they'll tell you when they come home. If there's somebody else, if there's another computer you're using at home, you might need to mute that.
I think
If there's another computer you're using at home, you might need to mute that.
Right.
If there's another computer you're using at home, you might need to mute that.
Right.
If there's another computer you're using at home, you might need to mute that.
If there's another computer you're using at home, you might need to mute that. If there's another computer you're using at you might need technology here. Technology here. Okay. I think it's better. Sorry about that.
Okay. No, that's all right. So case in point, right? Before you would see patients, talk to them. If there's medication prescribed and they go home. Now here you are having to upgrade your skill level and do a Zoom meeting on Facebook that could potentially reach thousands, right? And mastering Zoom and video call was not part of what you did.
That's right.
Similarly, fatherhood has changed so much because it used to be you told your children to do the same trade you were in. Farmers raised farmers, doctors raised doctors. But now imagine your child telling you, I want to be an astrologist. Like, that means you have to be well-vexed in astrology. So I'm saying all this to say that the pressure of being a father, which is by default the leader of the family, has changed. There are so many other facets. And typically when men are not masters of any field where they are called to show forth, they either cringe or they run.
That's powerful.
So just a little overview of the pressures of,
the current fatherhood, what they're called to be. Any take on that, Amir? Thank you so much, Pastor Paul, for that eye-opening twist on that.
Yeah. So, and thank you again, Gino, for having me as well. I'm going to come into this not claiming that, look, I'm a young father myself. So to any potential listeners, I'm not claiming that I'm a know-it-all. So I just want to say from the get-go, I have a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old, and I have a lot to learn, so, and I'm coming from a perspective of certainly as a psychiatric nurse practitioner who work with clients, but I think most importantly, my background is me being a Muslim, right? I'm a devout Muslim. That's how I lead my life, and I consider Quran as my GPS. So I'll go with my thesis, or my topic, or my main point today would be that we're talking about fathers, men. I think we all need some kind of a guidance, like a GPS. Let me just stick to that, right? A GPS that we would respect as the authority and use that as a guidance to go by. And there's a lack of it, or people are trying to making up their own GPS as they go, or they're going by what society or majority people are saying should be the GPS. And I think there's a bigger issues to that, right? It's just not father. There, we deal, I'm sure all of us here deal with clients with marital issues. So again, I this is a complex issue, like Gina, you mentioned, right? So I'm not going to try to pretend that I have the right solution for it, but I'm just going to share with you, I guess, what I have. So again, going back to the GPS, like from as a Muslim, I can just say that, when I'm looking for, when I was looking for my potential partner, right? So one of the priorities was that both of us held that GPS, and I keep referring to GPS because for us it's the Quran, which is, again, it tells us the way of life. We both upheld that as would be the authoritative thing, where we would say, yeah, I know you're right or you're wrong, but I respect what is being said, so I'm going to back out of that because I'm going to, lead the family, lead my life, or whatever it is. Otherwise, there's always this chaos argument, going to couples counseling, and then someone is saying, no, I feel still this way and that way. So again, not to belabor the point, but I just want to say that, we need a GPS, a guidance that's lacking at this time. That is affecting, from my perspective, fatherhood, right? So.
Oh yeah, we do need I like that. We do need guidance. We do need compass, not just, from the male perspective, but for the women perspective. And jumping off of that to say, is it truly, from my growing up, especially as female, and this is totally not bashing fatherhood. This is also just to give us, like as you said, Amir, to give us guidance, to give us a compass, a direction. Where do we go from here based on the changes that have happened over the years with responsibilities in regards to the household, the women, and then the men? Is there any disparities in raising our girls or our boys over the years? Has that changed? Because I know growing up, the girl child belongs in the kitchen, and they're setting aside roles. Now I think it was your podcast, Amir, I was listening to you say something. One, it was about, I think your kiddo, your baby, when it was really small, was crying, and you had a lot of trouble soothing, and that was like really like, okay, maybe I need to give baby back to mom to soothe, because we're naturally more like soothing, and culture has made it where, okay, the woman may be supposed to be cooking or cleaning, or so all the like things in the home is supposed to kind of be aligned more with the woman, and the men, maybe go out and get the bacon and bring it home, kind of thing. That's changing, truly. But when men, before kind of marriage or settling down, they do the stuff that they need to do, including doing laundry, cleaning, scrubbing the bathroom. At least the majority of men will do that until they get a partner, right? Is that disparity still a thing? What, you guys, you also have your families. Yeah, myself, I'm not an expert. I don't have an adult child by any means. I have a teen. I've had a lot of experience with other families and stuff. What have you seen disparities in regards to raising our sons and our daughters? And has that gotten any impact on the way families are being done? And what is your take on being able to do certain things when you're single versus now saying, okay, I'm married now, so that task should not be mine to do anymore, being raised. Okay, you need to be cleaning and doing all that stuff and raising the kids, and I just need to go get the bacon and come home. What is your take on that? I want to throw that to you, Pastor Paul, from your perspective.
Well, so if you go with what Amir said,
Yeah.
Society will always have its playbook.
Right.
The thing about society's playbook is that we don't know who authors and who edits.
Right.
So for those of us who are firmly grounded in our faith and religion, it becomes a question of society is pushing this. Religion. It becomes a question. Society is pushing this. Religion. It becomes a question. Society is pushing this. Religion. It becomes a question. Society is pushing this. You did something. Uh-oh, now you're muted, Gina. You're muted. Uh-oh, now you're muted, Gina.
It's
muted.
I know I'm not muted anymore. It's because of the.
Now you're muted, Gina.
It's
Facebook Live.
I know I'm not muted anymore. It's because of the.
Now you're muted, Gina. Facebook Live.
I know I'm not. It's because of Facebook Live. Yes, it's okay.
So lower the volume on the device with which you are watching the Facebook Live.
Maybe that's why. It's the same device. Maybe that's why. I'll try it on a different device. Let's go on. Sorry about that.
All right. So society will always have their standards that they push.
That's
now
right.
it's up to the individual to decide which of these standards that society pushes am I susceptible to based on my compass. Once again, to borrow Amir's analogy, which of them am I going to? Because just like driving, there are many exits that are available to you, all of them legal. What makes you listen to the one that's playing in your car? It's the one that you have chosen. So the battle here is that society is even changing the basic family module. It used to be that, like we said, husband goes to work, wife stays at home and manages the home. And then it changed. And then it became, well, we could all work. So, okay, so we work and we take turns in raising the kids. That's good. It doesn't infringe on most religions, right? But then we're getting to a part of society where most of the changes that are coming, I mean, if we go with what the wave is, the identity of family will change.
That's
so right there, the dynamics of fathering have also changed, because now society can tell you that it doesn't take a father to raise a son.
That's
It doesn't take a daughter to raise a daughter. The society is telling us that, you know, so the changes are coming and they've always been there. The question is, what is an individual anchored to in terms of something, whether it's faith, religion, a belief, that will make them take some of what society offers and say no? Because I know most religions now don't fight a woman going to work because there's really nothing wrong with it, right? There are fathers. There was a time where I stayed home and raised my children.
Right.
It doesn't change anything. But the question is, to what extent are we going to embrace every change that is offered to us, especially when we know that it is, or it might change the whole basis of the family? I like to look at it this way, and then I'll hand over to me. I like to look at it this way. In life, you can either have a taxi driver mindset or bus driver mindset.
Like that.
A taxi driver has to be open-minded, because if you leave your home and you say, I'm going to work for a few hours, and your first person says, I'm leaving Farmington and I'm going to Pennsylvania, what happens? You're a cab driver. It's well within the routes, right? But a bus driver cannot say that there are no passengers on the northbound side, and so I'm going to make a U-turn and go pick up those guys on the southbound. No, if you're a bus driver, you stick to your route. Even if you're going to pick two people all day, you stick to your route. The question here for families now is, when are we going to be bus drivers? And when are we going to be taxi drivers? Because you can be so open-minded with everything society throws that your brains will fall out.
Right.
And you can also be so close-minded that you can't function in society.
Right.
You know, so.
Absolutely. I love that. Hey, Amir, what's your take on the disparities?
Yeah, no, great take on that. And a few things, actually, I had a thought. I think we're just kind of going with that theme as well, that we're agreeing here that there has to be a template, right? Again, you think that you can respect. But one other thing, Gene, I wanted to go back, and I'm not sure this is also what you were also asking or questioning, is the disparities of like how we raised girls versus boys. Men who were working for themselves before, and now after marriage, they feel like this is like a norm where now girls go in the kitchen and the boys go out to work, right? So again, few thoughts. We know from the Islamic perspective, the time when the Prophet Muhammad came to Mecca, prior to him arriving, that society, the Arab society, would look at girl as a curse. So they would actually bury their children, their girls, their daughters, right? So after Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came with, again, with the narrative of following one God and following the message of Islam, this practice was definitely shunned. And at the same time, Islam kept highlighting that girls are in fact a blessing, in some sense more than boys. So but still we see here, so there's this, and I want to say it again, there's the religious side of it, but there's also the cultural side of it. There's two separate things, and a lot of times people make that together, and there's a lot of stereotypical things that are portrayed. Someone was asking me a few years ago, that they're asking me in as a Muslim or in Islam, is it that your wife is supposed to just walk behind you and kind of put your head down? And again, this is more like a stereotypical portrayal, and that's a culture. That is not the faith or the GPS that I follow. There was nothing in the Quran that says that's how it's supposed to be, where, so are there still disparities, with how we raise our daughters versus our sons? Yes, there are, but I feel that it's driven by lack of knowledge, proper. Again, I'm coming from a faith-based perspective, so lack of faith-based knowledge and wisdom, and therefore we practice this. Girls are less or more than boys less and more. So that's that side of it. And again, we come back to like when a man grows up and say does everything for themselves. So then once they get married, now they feel like they have a way out, and they want to, offset that responsibility to a woman. And again, they're going by lack of proper understanding of the faith. And again, the faith takes, the bad name here. So again, we have to use this GPS, but we have to use it with wisdom. Same thing, like I'll take the car as the pastor was using. I'll use the car as an analogy. A car is a great utility. You can drive it and get from point A to point B for your own benefit, or you can crash into it to destroy others if you don't have the proper knowledge how to do it. So that's why with faith, when you hear people who are the radicals who try to make faith look just an awful thing, and therefore the other side too, so my friends who are not a believer, they think that that's what faith is. Look at what faith has done here. So anyways, I just wanted to touch on those two things. I think those are the two things that came up in my mind.
Oh my God, that is so good. That is so good. So the overuse of one extreme to the advantage of the other is I think where we are doing. And this is it should be an ongoing conversation to really drive home the changes that are happening in our society, in our communities, in our families, to make things easier, especially so some of these generational things do not get passed on and on and on. So jumping over that disparities in raising our kids in our homes, how do we now take this and say, hey, how do we do things better? What are some of the reasons why, let's say, fathers become absent? Is it untreated trauma? Is it what they see in their society, in the communities, what they see their uncles, their fathers do. Is that? Is it an attachment issue? And this attachment issue, I'll throw it to you, Amir, and I see Dr. Nicola joining us today. You can put in the chat if you want to say something about what we are saying. More than welcome to chip in. She's a psychologist. She's an awesome advocate for everything we are talking about mental health. So I'm asking, this absenteeism, whether it's, fathers are present physically, as I mentioned earlier on, but absent, whether they are on the phone or they're home, but they're on the computer or they are in the basement, commonly called what is it called? The dungeon. Not call it the dungeon. It's not the dungeon. I know there's a terminology for it, but checked out, right? And maybe there's a lot of anger. We have fathers who might be numbing the nitty-gritty, the heaviness of maybe raising kids. We find a lot of fathers easy to make babies, but when it comes to raising them, it's easy to check out or use substances or different things go down in, their checkout place. Video games become a lot of ways to numb their way through. Is it an attachment thing? Is it a generational thing? Is it exposure, lack of support or mentorship for men in general? And we have this thing that we say, okay, men are really not accustomed to talking about their feelings or their emotions, so they check out a little bit. What, you guys are men, please tell us, give us some explanation. We're scratching our heads sometimes trying to figure it out. I'll throw it to you, Pastor Paul, first, or whoever wants to go first in regards to this. Why do we have men being absent in general? Is it trauma untreated? What is happening there? Enlighten us a little bit.
I think there are a myriad of reasons why that happens.
Right, for sure.
We can't even hang our hats on any one particular thing. What we know from, especially once again, from a Christian perspective and the studies that are done, is that society is more and more becoming less responsible, right? And I'll give you an example. I do a lot of marriages, and probably, Amir, you probably know how true this is. Back in the day, no matter how qualified I was as a worker, no matter how prosperous I was as a person, for me to be able to get a person to marry, my tradition, this is not even Christian religion, the tradition of society was that I would have to go to my parents, tell them of the lady that I was interested in. They would do their background check. Mind you, no social security number, none of those things, just questions, asking, finding out. And then they would go and ask elders older than my parents to come along to go and ask for the permission to get married to a woman.
Right.
And by that whole process, what I was doing was I'm borrowing the heritage and the credibility of my family name and going to ask. Similarly, if I wanted to divorce, I would have to go through same procedure, going to ask. And mind you, they frowned on any form of divorce. So you would have to give them more than tangible evidence. So that's just, so first and foremost, every relationship you got into, you are putting your family name on the line.
Of course.
And whether your family was rich or not, everybody wanted a noble name. These days, a person can meet someone in Dunkin' Donuts, be strong enough and believe that they love them, and you get a text as a parent that we're getting married, we'll send you pictures. So as easily as that contractual relationship is started, it can easily be broken.
Right.
Right. So in our day and time, you could not just get up and walk away.
Of course.
Whether the relationship was consummated in a marriage or not.
Right.
You were expected to introduce everyone who you were in any form of relationship with the family. And it wasn't just casual, but it had implications. Those implications have been watered down today.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so that's one reason why, you know, it's easy for people to walk away. Some of our parents got married not because every spouse checked the box. No, they
Sure.
got married because they gave their word and they stuck to the word.
For sure. So
So today that's not, at least that's one thing I see. Yeah.
So I'll jump in too, because
Please,
Pastor,
jump in.
you're touching on a really fascinating thing, and I do feel, Gina, that this is such a thing that we can't sort of summarize in like half hour. But I'm glad, Pastor, you kind of touched on that side of it, and I would love to expand. But then I want to also touch another side of this as well, because Gina, as you were saying that, you know, well, like why men are where they are as fathers right now. And Pastor, as you mentioned, there are myriad of issues, right? So one of the things, and now this is me putting on my psychiatric nurse practitioner hat. So, we, the way we are is it's learned. Subconsciously, it's learned, right? So in therapy too, for my clients, when I recommend them to go to therapy, and so they're talking about, okay, how, we talk about, okay, how did I get here? Well, that's a good thing that you're trying to explore, like what things in the past got you here, but somehow, some way you have learned it now. It's almost, language, English, like, if somebody's speaking English in front of you, you don't wonder, okay, let's try to dig deep into where you started learning English. How did it start? You learned it. Yeah. Okay. It's good to get some understanding of it. But I would say again, so it's like our subconsciously, we watch our fathers, our mothers, our society around us to learn the way we behave, whether it leads us to substance use. Now, trauma is another very powerful side. We know that, right? An ACEs study, ACES, I would recommend any and all of us, our viewers, of course, our listeners, to really go and look into it. ACEs study was one of the decade-long, well-funded, and I don't feel it's as biased, is one of the studies that will tell you that children who have gone through trauma in the past, now as an adult, they are, either using substance, even to an extent, ACEs study talks about how their physical health is affected. But I think trauma is one of it. I'm not saying all of the issue, but trauma does play a significant impact on our men, women. I mean, again, but we're talking about fathers here, but I would say it plays a huge role. And, our fathers, and I can, I have no problem sharing my personal experience that, I never had a very connected experience with my father. I mean, my parents were married, they stayed married, but never had that, my mother sort of played that role of kind of doing a lot of stuff that I wish my father did. And so I held a resentment for a long time, even up till, I don't know, I'm 40 right now, but I would say even up till like age 36, 37, I would say, why did my dad didn't do any of it, right? And why was he always like angry and didn't take me out? Because I grew up in Bangladesh. So, why didn't he take me out to play soccer with him? He never did any of that. My mom was trying to kind of push some of it to the best that she could. But he would always come home. He would have these temper tantrums and all that. But now that I'm a father now, and I'm working and everything, and I'm blessed. I gotta say that I'm blessed that I'm able to do this here, where and in America, where we all live as kings and queens, versus back home, I can tell you that it's not as easy. But I now can look at my father's, kind of be in his shoes, even though I disagree how he reacted. But I just can't imagine all the psychological stuff on a day in, day out basis that he was going through over there. And I'm just talking about, and again, I'm not trying to distinguish between men and women here. I'm just talking about just a human being going through the psychological stressors that they go through. So, so I'm appreciating it more. I mean, my father's now at a nursing home. I mean, I've tried to go see him 3 to 4 times a week. But I'm trying to, life changes things, like we learn things. That's why I said, there's a lot more for me to learn. My mom passed away 2 years ago, someone I loved, and now I'm getting to realize the value of my loved ones around me, that I can't have her back right now, at least not in this world. I know in the next world in Islam, we get to meet, granted that we did the right thing, but in any case, I'm more closer to my father now because I'm trying to, kind of realize that the experiences that he went through, I definitely forgive him, and I understand maybe. I mean, I don't know. He never shared. He has going through dementia, right? So he won't be able to share all his experience with me now. But in any case, I think I kind of went off more longer than I should have right here. But so going back to it, we learn things. Why men behave they do, like, it's a learned behavior subconsciously, right? Whether through our parents, domestic violence at home, substance use and whatnot, right? Trauma is a huge piece. And I also want to say, because I can easily see a group where it would say, I'm bringing all this back to faith in God, but that's not what it is. My thing is that all I'm trying to say here, that I fully acknowledge that trauma, fully acknowledge substance abuse, fully acknowledge some of the other triggers that play a role in why these men become who they are. But the foundational piece is what I'm saying is the foundation is, if it's based on faith, that is where I truly believe that you're in a better guidance than not. That I'm not saying that, hey, trauma should not be addressed if you follow just faith. Absolutely not. But anyways, before I keep rambling more, but that's right.
You're not rambling. Yeah. I appreciate you being so vulnerable to share that part, because in the sharing, the healing, because I've come to realize also that waiting till a certain period of time in our lives, maybe in our 50s, in our 60s, 70s, or whatever, you never know where life takes you. Like you mentioned, your dad is in the nursing home, to now share some of those nuggets. Sometimes it's really important as you go through it to share. And as in sharing, we all learn from each other as we do this thing, parenting, adulting, fathering, and then maybe mothering as well. But I thank you so much for sharing that and being in that vulnerable space to, share in that story about your dad. Because yes, life is so short. You never know where, by really talking about it, healing from it, identifying from people's other perspective, what must he have gone through? What must my father have gone through to make me who I am, or my experiences or my perspective? But really sharing and find other people's perspective also helps you stay grounded or learn more and become a little more open-minded and accepting of other people's nuances, is what I have found to be kind of, workable. In the words of Jay Shetty, I listen to him a lot. He's this Indian who went on a pilgrimage and became a monk. So he has a lot of awakening around mental health, especially pertaining to families. And he did share some of the struggles with his family. So I learned from that and many others in this journey of, being a little more mindful to share in the, like, in our culture, say, don't air your dirty laundry. Make sure you hide it. But in the hiding, that's where the trauma becomes even worse, especially when it carries forth to our children and our children's children, and the generational trauma continues in that way. So as we ease almost towards the ending, I just want to throw out there, in my research, I went on Psychology Today and different websites. It shows that at least over 35% of African-American men, and I'm saying African-American men because we are African-Americans. Yes, we are also immigrants, but we are African-Americans as well, people of color, minorities. It shows that over 35% of men, whether in juvie or in our jail, in our juvenile detention or jail, justice system, in the court system, what is causing that? Is that, we're discussing and we're talking about a lot of this stuff in regards to absent fathers and stuff like that. I see a lot of kids in schools, a lot of, especially boys, with disruptive behavior, with aggression, with anger. and, going through that direction where you say, hey, I can see where this trend is going. Have you guys noticed, anything? And then many of the time you see something running to church to heal, to find faith after the fact, because sometimes family members get tired of the in and out of the juvenile or the court system, or, what have you seen? How can we help a young, tender future of our men, especially when it comes to we African Americans and our immigrants, young men? How do we save our men, our young, how do we raise them differently so they don't end up in the justice system, in the court system?
So
Pastor Paul, please.
there is a saying, it's an African proverb, I believe, that says that it takes a village to raise a child.
Oh, yes.
It takes a village to raise a child. And once again, society back in the day, and this is not African, Asian, or American, society in general used to live more communally.
Right.
Apart from just husband and wife, for example, when I was growing up, if my uncle saw me doing something wrong, they did not need to write anybody permission or they would discipline me in town. And then when I get home, I get disciplined again. My neighbor could do the same to me, right? So the community living is not there anymore. So when even you have parents who are both married, both committed, but are being pulled by different things, going to school and working, both, the guidance for the child becomes less and less. We delegate more and more to TV, to apps, and to all these things, so it's not just the extreme of the father is not home. The father could be home, but if he's worked 12 hours and he's about to go in 5, I don't want to do algebra with you, man. Like,
I'm not there.
I know fathers who take the longest route home because they need to debrief, because once they go home, so now here are the blessings of our marriage, but because of our lifestyle changes now, it's burdensome. So he might need to, so if you consider the child a train, once one rail system is broken, there's a tendency for them to go. So even when a parent is absent and the community does not play a role, it's free fall for vices. Because if adults don't know where to take their stress and pressure, imagine the kid.
Exactly. Wow, that's big. That's powerful. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of add more to it, and I'm going to probably say the same thing, but maybe in a different way, but same, which is, and this is again me as someone from the Muslim perspective, that our children, the young ones, how do we kind of make sure we keep guiding them, right? The village that you talked about, so we have, for example, for our children, we try to do what we can at home, but we also bring them to the mosque, right? Where there are other children, and then there are other people who get to know each other, and they're like, as Pastor was saying, like the uncle who sees something and he or she, it's kind of, whatever way, in a way that's appropriate to say, hey, look, this is not the way you do it. Right. So, so these children grow up with mentors, right? And in the Islamic faith, one of the ideal mentor that we guide to all of our children, all of us, is the Prophet Muhammad, because he has a very in-depth biography that we call hadith, right? How he slept, how he ate, how he treated people, and so on. So one of the best of mentors for us is the Prophet Muhammad, but also in a living world, like people around us. So the village that the pastor is referring to, right? So something like that becomes very, very crucial, right? And the message has to be somewhat similar. So I guess what I mean by that is, and I hope I don't get into hot waters by saying this, but so like how, I don't know, like we're sending our children to the mosque, so we're learning the faith-based life, and then we're sending them to completely different kind of a setting where they're seeing other mentors. But I mean, again, we should all be tolerant and be with each other, but the guidance and the message has to be kind of the same. You don't want to confuse the young children, because one side is saying, hey, these are things, the right things, and do it this way. And the other side is saying, hey, oh, don't worry about it, it's all fine. And, it's like what Pastor was saying, right? Going with the majority, right? And this is the day and age of social media. There's some great things in social media, but that's where, we have, as a society now, we have one of the many gods that we have taken on. We have taken on social media as our gods, and the likes gives us dopamine rush, right? So we're constantly, everybody's on that dopamine rush, including our fathers, right? On the phone, right? But of course, I mean, there are other issues and struggles that our fathers are going through. But anyways, coming back to it, that we need to be able to guide them to have in an institution like this. And again, I'll come back to faith and having that GPS, that, as a family, if my GPS is my faith, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, right? So, we have a way of life. Nowhere in that, though, it talks about intolerance. It does not. I don't think so. I think these faith preaches love, living together, be tolerant. Yes, I believe in my faith, but that's what the Quran says. To you is your faith, to me is my faith. It's almost like I'm driving a BMW and you're driving a Mercedes or Toyota Corolla or whatever. But I'm not saying, hey, you should, mine is better. And so we're not saying any of that. But yes, of course, if you want to learn about my car, I would love to talk to you about my car. For sure. Yeah. So, but coming back to, again, faith plays a very powerful role. We need that GPS. Outside of it, what do we have? One final thing I'm going to say, because I don't know how much time you have, Gina, but again, from an Islamic perspective, the narrative right here, all of us in this world, we are, I mean, so do I by default. We want to eat, sleep, be merry, and entertainment is the default, what we want. I mean, I would want to take the path of least resistance. That's who I am as a human being. Sure. But the Quran, says it throughout the whole book, everywhere, that this world is a test. This was never supposed to be. The objective in this world is not to, the end objective is not to be happy. Although I want to make sure I'm clear here, because I might be taken the wrong way here. The end objective is not to be happy. This is a test. It's almost like you're going to that exam hall to take the test. When you go to that exam hall, me, Gina, and you and I, when we got to take our licensing exam, our objective was there to go in there, pass the test, get the license, get out of there. Now, in that process, within that test, I can bring in some food and drink for me to be comfortable, for me to be, and while taking that test, I might be happy for a variety of reasons. Maybe I'm finding the exams easy or whatever, but I could be happy. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I didn't walk out of that test being not happy, it's not like all is doom and gloom. And so a lot of times when I talk to my clients, majority of the perspective is that if I didn't have that thing or whatever it is in this world, that's it. And most times that happened with our friends and clients who have not had a faith-based lifestyle. When you have faith, you understand that this is a test. There will be the good times and there will be time that you will be tested. And then, as the Quran says, give glad tidings to those who seek patience. So patience is a huge thing. So anyways, coming back to it, that's what I believe in. And at the end of the day, I submit to one maker for all of us, right? And that's what, by the way, Muslim is not some new faction or anything like that. The Arabic word Muslim means the one who submits and they seek peace by, because the word has two meanings, submission and peace. Now, meaning we seek peace by submitting to one maker, and then outside of it, anything else we're not attached to. All the other things in this world, we're not quite attached to it. We need it, but we don't submit to it. We don't submit to social media and make it our God. We don't want to submit to money and other things. Although again, by default, we get trapped into these things. But you got to come back to the GPS. Come back to the GPS, make it your foundation. And then from there, you can start, doesn't exclude you seeking trauma therapy, because you have to do that. It doesn't exclude you from seeking treatment from your doctor for your blood pressure. You need that, so a person who's following faith doesn't mean that, I'm just waiting for God to get it all done. No, not whatsoever. Sorry, I have a tendency to be tangent, but but here we go.
Right. Yes, for sure. Pastor Paul, you had something?
No, I was agreeing with him. on one hand, the faith aspect of our lives gives us a centrality, kind of like it keeps us centered and anchored, right? Faith does not take away, faith or religion doesn't take away trauma, trouble, death, whatever, right? But it gives us some kind of anchor, or it grounds us in a way, right? And that is what Amir is bringing to the table, because it's not like you know this as a mental health practitioner. Most of the honest ones will tell you that they need mental health treatment themselves, or if they are not getting it, they'll tell you, I need it, but I'm just being stubborn, right? So like he said in the beginning, when we say these things, we are not saying that we have mastered them, right? We're not saying, but we're saying from our experience and what we've noticed, these are some of the things that help. I think having a faith aspect to your life, something that is beyond all the money and all the niceties that we see, keeps you centered. Because there was a time before I got into this, there was a time I believed that if you had money, mental issues were not for you.
Oh, for sure.
I was so naive. I thought, man, money will answer everything. And then I realized that no, some people have every bit of money you can even dream of, and it still doesn't help.
For sure.
Right. So yeah, we
This is
definitely
why
need some.
seeking help, expression of, troubles or difficulties, finding different perspective, because a problem shared is a problem halved. And what I've come to believe is having faith, centering yourself in faith, community, and really truly service. And some of the stuff I do, and I really appreciate your time here too. Even if one person is listening to us today, one person listened and took away something from this. For me, some of the stuff is also service, serving the people, serving, and it brings us also healing and center. So really, what I'm taking away is faith really is important, because what parenting, fatherhood, it's not easy, and it's easy to get deceived into the world or drugs or ego or stubbornness being the way, and the effect or the aftermath of that is the impact on the whole family, as in general, when one person is taking a stance that doesn't move the work forward to raise the family and raise the community and society at large. So the last thing that I'll throw to you, gentlemen, will be, what are some of the ways? It's so difficult for even our churches, our mosque. I sit there a lot of time and I look, over 50%, if not more, of people who show up at church, at the mosques, are women and children. We go to the altar, we pray, we cry. We are the women going to seek therapy. But if you're doing all of that and the men are not, the family system, the community is still struggling to keep going. Our school system, everything. What are some of the ways we can help our fathers to seek help, to seek therapy, to heal their childhood wounds, to heal their traumas? These days, nobody can tell me there's no trauma. There's small T trauma, big T trauma. Even if you don't have big T trauma, like the big old shebangs of traumas, we all have some big, small T traumas, and really healing and talking about it and seeking help is important. How do we bring our men to doing that? Is it, I know you do mentorship, Pastor Paul. Can you kind of help us with that, especially with our young ones? Just kind of preventative care. For me, I like preventative care in mental health too. So how do we prevent the next generation from carrying forward? What are some of the resources, support, mentorship, things that can be there, especially when it comes to the man-child, as our fathers too?
So I think the first thing is to demystify what mental health is.
Oh, sure. Woo, I like that.
You have no idea how many learned people will quickly give you great advice on how to treat or how to get help for cancer.
Oh, yes.
But if you tell them something that is screaming mental health, and they'll tell you, oh, you need a nap. Like, and of course, there are varying degrees of how mental health is, is expressed in someone. But when somebody tells you that something that could lead someone to take their life, and their suggested solution to you is take a nap.
Wow. Take a nap.
And this is an educated person. I know somebody in the medical field who does not believe mental health is an issue. Right? So we first need to demystify it.
Sure.
Right? And so it doesn't become a second thought. That's one. Number two, we must, even in the faith arena, especially for me in Christianity, faith is necessary because as human beings, we are limited human beings. You can't do it all. You are not meant to do it all. Wow. There's a limit to your capacity, right? And sometimes the very thing that we use or we need to help us stay grounded is the very thing that we use to drive ourselves down to the path where we will need mental health, something that we are not so well vexed in, right? So I encourage people to be able to practice these things. Number one, you must practice solitude, silence. Wow. You must keep a Sabbath. You must, because you and I know that 24-hour TV is for everybody. Somebody is sitting down right now, programming something for you to watch at 2 a.m.
Oh, yes.
So if you wire your life as in, I'm going to be up so long as there's something to do, somebody will do it for you.
Of course.
And when you have these things that ground you, for example, silence, meditation, all these things are faith practices that were meant to calm the human body down. Things like sleeping at the right time.
Taking notes.
Right? These are things that help.
Sure.
Usually when you tell someone that they should take time to sleep, the world has made us think, or society, and sometimes when I say the world, I'm not, even in church, sometimes people believe that the more you're up, the more you're well. And I'm like, where did you get that life?
You're doing and doing.
Right? So on one hand, we say, well, we thank God for giving us this body, but well, we're gonna, we'll take care of it, when we have the chance. No. I believe one of the ways you appreciate God for everything He's done for you is to appreciate the body that He gave you to live in. We believe we are spiritual beings, but this is our container. And your spirit will only live as long as this is able to live.
Right.
Right? So what's the point of my prayers if I'm going to stuff my face with fatty food?
Sure.
Right? So, there are so many, of course, we can't finish this today, but it's important that we learn, we have boundaries, we demystify what mental health is. I do a lot of work with the fire department and police, and I'm telling you, if it had any other name on it, cancer, HIV, whatever, the outcry would be so much more. So much. But the effects are the same, if not worse.
It's not worse. Absolutely.
You know the medical side better than me. So
just like Amir mentioned, ACEs for sure. What's your last take? Any resources you can share with us, Amir?
Well, actually, Pastor talked about nap. But I promise you, I wasn't that person who suggested anybody to take a nap. But I would recommend a form of that, which Pastor also talked about, sleep. It's one of it. I'm not making it all about sleep, but sleep is a very important function for our children growing up. Our school system is such right now that the adolescents, when they're going to school, they have to wake up 5:30, 6:30 to catch the bus. Mm-hmm. We know in our, in the world of mental health and psychiatry and in the medical world that the circadian rhythm, the sleep pattern for children at the adolescent age is different than children who's younger than that, than an adult, than an older adult.
Sure.
Meaning a child, a teenager, he might be, his sleep time might be, his natural sleep time might be 11:30, but he's being asked to go to sleep either early, or he eventually does fall asleep by 12 o'clock, but then he has to wake up within 6 hours. And if you're waking up in 6 hours, it's not my take, but science is saying, no, you're not getting, objectively, you're not getting enough sleep. You're missing out on very much needed REM sleep. And if you're missing out on much needed REM sleep, you're missing out on ability to build better memory. You're missing out on ability to, clarify your emotions better. So these children who go to school with lack of sleep, they drag the whole day, kind of sleepy and tired, right? I mean, they're doing the best they can. And again, I don't want to get in hot water with this, but still, out of how many of them who graduate develop other mental health issues, depression, anxiety? I mean, there could be, again, other issues behind it, but how much of it was lack of good sleep hygiene? And I'm going to say there could be a lot. We just don't know. I don't have the data in front of me. How many were, now having poor memory, poor focus, concentration ability, and therefore we're leading with the diagnosis of ADHD. And by the way, again, I do treat clients for ADHD. So it's not saying, I'm not saying ADHD is not a thing. It is a thing, but how much of them are falsely inflated by that? So if there's one thing that I would share, is that you have to make sure you are a sleeper, right? You're sleeping, doing everything you can. But then again, there's a societal thing that, high school times, I don't think I can change the timing that high school has. So this is a societal thing, and I'm kind of handcuffed with it, right? I don't know, but I really pray and hope that as time progresses, we as a society, kind of push back that start time for school for our children, right? So that they're able to do that. The other thing is, I was going to say that, if you look back at history, and even in some parts of the world right now, one of them would be the Jabra tribe in Kenya. There's a society that's untouched by electricity in the Kalahari Desert. They're not touched by electricity, right? So they practice something called biphasic sleep, right? They sleep their nighttime 8 hours or so, but they also take a nap in the afternoon, 30 to 40 minutes nap, right? Very healthy. Our society is at such a fast pace right now, we're not able to do that. But I'm just saying there's benefit in it. I know I'm saying a few things where it is not practically, that's not there. A resource that I also want to put on top of this would be a great book by Matthew Walker. Matthew Walker is one of the top sleep scientists in the country. His book is Why We Sleep. Great book. This is not a book where he's talking about some flash in the pan, like take this or take this chemical or take any of that, or some new thing that came out, or take my class afterwards for $5,000, and none of that. He's just bringing up things that were always researched, things that are just being brought up. You're not going to see this on TV. Nobody's going to talk about sleep well, because if they're going to say sleep well, they're going to say also take this medication to sleep well, because there's money to be made. So I'm just saying, if there's one thing that I also wanted to kind of bring up, is the priority right here of making sure that we're kind of be aware that our children won't have the same sleep time as us as adults. And so we have to give them the opportunity to sleep well for their mental health, for better emotion, for better memory, better focus, concentration, and so on.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate you sharing. Appreciate it all. And I'm going to make a note in the description about Matthew Walker and myself. I'm going to check it out. Hopefully that's an audible version.
There's an audible version. Yeah.
Slow down. Thank you for sharing so much. And
Why We Sleep, right?
Was that?
It's Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker.
Oh, Why We Sleep. Yeah, for sure. We need rest. Go, overworking, overstressed society, bubbling over to a lot of issues at home, chaos. So even it's something as simple as getting rest, community, finding right community support, safe community, and then our faith. Today is what our takeaway is. So if our listeners, I'm sure you have a man in your life, your father, your uncle, your son, whatever male, share please that some of this nugget, and this is going to be an ongoing conversation. But thank you so much, Amir. Thank you so much, Pastor Paul, for your time with me today.
Thank you.
And you guys have a great, wonderful rest of the day. And I'm sure we'll be in touch soon. Thank you guys for tuning in to listen to our conversation today.
All right, guys.
Thank you so
Bye,
much,
guys.
Rebecca.
Bye.
Bye.